Hello and welcome. My name is Shannon. My pronouns are they, them for anybody who might be joining us today for the first time. Tonight, we have a restorative practice focusing on releasing the neck and shoulders. We're actually going to start after our grounding with a little bit of stretching, which we normally don't do before a restorative practice. But I find it's helpful with the head and neck because sometimes when we release the muscles up here, when we come into our restorative postures, it allows the heart space to open, and then that way the shoulders really have a chance to relax. But sometimes when we're holding a lot of tension in our neck, everything kind of tightens up and we don't really get the chance to let go. So that's been my experience. So that's why I like to offer a little bit of stretching before this particular type of practice. Excuse me. For our grounding, we can be in any comfortable position. So if we are in a chair, we might be seated with our back against the back of the chair, feet on the ground, relaxed. We can have a blanket over us. We can be reclined, maybe with a pillow or a bolster beneath the knees. Or we can be seated in any comfortable position. I personally like butterfly or Baddha Konasana, feet together, knees apart. That gives me a lot of space for my belly. In fact, I'm going to pull the belly between the legs so I have a little bit more space. And once we've found our position, we might take a moment and maybe take a nice deep inhale through the nose if that's comfortable, and release with a sigh or vocalization, doing our best to let go of the day so far. We can take as many of these breaths as we need today. And then we can find our natural breath, whatever that feels like for us. Allowing ourselves a moment to really come into the space. One thing that can happen when we practice at home is everything kind of follows us. We're not shutting a door on what's happening at home and going somewhere. So allowing ourselves to really take a moment to know that in these little parameters today, on our mat or our bed or our chair, that this is the only place we need to be right now. The only thing we need to be doing. We might take a moment to notice the sounds in our space. I'm in the city, so you might hear some car sirens or talking or anything like that coming through your speakers, but make note of what's in your space too. We might notice how we're feeling in our body today. If there's anywhere that maybe needs a little bit more adjustment, a little bit more comfort, we can offer ourselves that. If there's anywhere asking that we maybe be a little bit tender with it, we'll make a note of those areas so that we can be as kind to ourselves as possible today. We might begin to notice if we have any big feelings or any large sensations in the body that are generally associated with emotion. And we'll just make note that maybe that's where we are right now. We have these particular feelings in the body, these particular emotions. And see if we can acknowledge and see them more as an observer than a participant, which isn't always easy. And if that's not something that we feel comfortable with today, that's okay too. We might notice if we have any loud thoughts today. We might notice if our thoughts are coming quickly or slowly. Again, no judgment here. Simply allowing ourselves to notice. If we have any thoughts that are particularly loud, we can acknowledge those and then see if we can let go. Not that we're trying to force a thought out of the mind, or that we're just allowing it to be as it is. We might return to the breath, noticing the inhale and the exhale. If we like, we might pull the breath in and out through the nose, if that's comfortable for us today. If it isn't, that's okay too. We might also choose maybe to pull the breath down into the belly or the diaphragm. If we like, we can put a hand on the belly, noticing the expansion on our inhale and the softening on our exhale. And if we like, we can continue this breath throughout our practice today, knowing that if it ever becomes uncomfortable, we can choose something else. You might take a moment to notice those areas of the body making contact with the mat, the floor, the props, the chair, and allow those areas to hold us, to support us as we continue to breathe in a way that's comfortable. We might bring our awareness to the neck and shoulders, noticing how they're feeling in this moment. Again, we don't want to interject judgment or think about why we feel the way we feel. We're just spending a moment noticing maybe any strong sensations through the neck and shoulders, anywhere that feels tight or tender. Because we do want to be as kind to ourselves as we are as we're practicing. And if at any point we notice that something feels a little more intense than we'd like, we can always ease back. And when we're ready, we might start to bring a little bit of movement into the body, maybe the fingers, the feet, the head, the neck. We can take any stretches or movements that feel good for us. And then when we're ready, we might gently roll onto the right or left side if we're reclined and press up to seated. And as I mentioned, we're going to start with a little bit of stretching through the head and neck today. So we'll come into whatever seated position is comfortable for us, no matter where we are. We can be cross-legged, we can have the legs spread out, anything that feels good. If we like, we can be seated on a bolster. That can also be really helpful, or a couple blankets to lift the hips, the bum, like, and hips above the knees. And once we've found our position, we'll take a moment to build up from the sit bones through the spine, up through the crown of the head, finding a nice long spine, and taking a moment to notice how that feels. If we tend to hunch over, we might gently roll the shoulders back slightly. And we're going to start by bringing our chin towards the right shoulder. So turning the head. And we're just going to notice what sensations we're feeling, what our range of movement is. Take a few deep breaths here. And then we'll come back through center. Take a nice inhale, and on our exhale, we're going to rotate towards the left. Again, noticing the same thing here, maybe particularly noticing the sensation through the right side of the face, neck, shoulders. And then we'll come back through center. We're going to come into a shoulder release. So I'm going to start with my right shoulder and letting the arm be heavy against my leg, or I can have a block next to me. I'm going to slowly start to lift the right shoulder towards the right ear, taking our time, moving slowly, carefully, bringing the shoulder up as high as it'll go today. And once you're there, we're going to hold for about 10 seconds. And while we're holding, we'll notice sensation. We'll notice where we feel tightness, where we might feel release. And on our exhale, we're going to slowly start, just as slow as we came up, lowering the shoulder down, down, all the way down. We might notice if we feel a difference between the two shoulders. And then we'll come into the left shoulder. So slowly, very slowly, carefully bringing the shoulder up, 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 as high as it'll go. And holding here. Again, noticing what we're feeling. We might even notice where we're tight through the back. And then when we're ready, gently releasing down, taking our time slowly, all the way down. Now we're going to repeat our head turns. We're going to bring our chin towards the right side. Again, noticing if we feel a difference in our range of motion, a difference in sensation. And then we'll come back through center and in the opposite direction. And we might notice if we felt more release on one side or the other. Not as judgment, but more as data points. So from here, we're going to come into another neck stretch. I'm going to bring my right hand down, and I might tuck it under my leg or under my bum. I can rest my left hand anywhere that feels comfortable. Then I'm going to slowly tilt my left ear towards the left shoulder, letting that right shoulder be nice and heavy. And then taking a few deep breaths here. Now we can stay here if this feels like enough sensation, or we might very slowly start to roll the chin forward. So moving in an arc, kind of rolling the head forward, taking our time. If we notice anywhere that's particularly sticky, we can hang out there for a moment. And then slowly letting the chin rest against the heart space if that feels comfortable. And noticing where we feel sensation. Maybe we feel it more through the scalp or at the base of the skull. We might feel it through the neck. We might even feel it through the back and sometimes the low back and hips. Again, we're not judging, we're just collecting data points so we understand maybe a little bit more about where we're holding stress and what types of movement might help us release it. And when we're ready, we can gently begin to roll back in the direction we came, taking our time, hanging out anywhere that feels tight or stiff. And then we'll come back to our original position. Once we're there, if we like, we can raise the left hand and gently assist the head back to center. We can release the right arm. And then we'll do the same thing on the opposite side. So we're going to, if it's comfortable, if we like, place the hand under the thigh or bum. We'll slowly begin to release the left ear towards the left shoulder and take a few deep breaths here. You might begin our journeying forward, gently rolling the head. Again, hanging out where we need. And then again, releasing our head forward, letting the head be heavy. When we're ready, we can gently begin to roll back. And when we eventually make it back to our starting position, we can lift the right hand and gently assist the head back through center. From here, we're going to bring the hands behind the head and interlace the fingers, or we can just support the head, whatever feels comfortable. And we're going to find our nice long spine. And we're going to paddle the elbows. So we're going to start with the right elbow, moving up and forward, then the left. And we're going to do about 5 of these, taking our time, noticing the sticky spots. This will be my last one going forward. And then we're going to reverse it. So left elbow up and back, right elbow up and back. And I don't know about you, but for me, sometimes this one takes a little bit more concentration. Beautiful. I'm on my last one now. There we go. Back through center, and we can gently release the arms down. Take a moment, any movement that you need. And then we're going to come through a cat-cow, a seated cat-cow. And we're going to do 2 different variations. So whatever leg position feels best for you. I still like my butterfly. But again, finding our nice long spine. We can have our hands on our knees, on our calves, whatever feels good. On my inhale, I'm going to roll the shoulders back, shine the heart forward, gaze up if that feels good for the neck. And on my exhale, round the spine, chin to chest. Inhale, cow, shining the heart forward. Exhale, cat, rounding the spine. And we'll do 3 more of these on our own breath. going at whatever pace feels good for you. And then we're going to come through our rolling cat-cow. So we'll start back in our neutral position. We're going to start by taking a deep inhale. On our exhale, we'll hinge forward, coming into our cat, and then shine the heart forward, pressing up into cow. Exhale, rolling the spine, hinging forward. Inhale, shining the heart forward, back through center. We'll do 2 more. Exhale, rounding. Inhale, shining the heart forward. Last one. Exhale, cat. Inhale, pressing up. Cow. On our exhale, we'll come back through our neutral position. Beautiful. We're going to come into a rotation or a twist. And so for this, if we like, we can have a block or a pillow behind us. We'll start with the right hand behind the right bum. If we're in a chair, we can also put the hand on the arm of the chair. Our left hand can either stay against the left thigh or cross over the body as we begin to rotate from the base of the spine up through the shoulders, and then continuing maybe with the chin in the direction of the shoulder if that feels comfortable. And we'll hold here for 3 breaths. Beautiful. Inhale, gently float forward, and then come into the twist on the opposite side. So left hand behind the left bum. Same options for our hands. We'll rotate from the base of the spine up through the shoulders. Beautiful, gently floating forward. So we're going to come into our first supported posture. And for this, we're going to be coming into a supported Sphinx. So we have a few different options. I'm going to demo on the floor first, and then I'll demo for our friends who are seated in a chair. So if you need a little bit more cushion under the body to lie on the belly, you can grab a blanket and lay that down on the mat. If lying on your belly isn't going to work for you, go ahead, type in the chat, and I'll give you a separate option. Actually, I'll just give you the option anyway. So let's start with our belly position first. I'm going to grab my bolster and place it across the mat. This is option 1. If we like, we can also grab one of our blankets and wrap it around the shoulders if we're chilly. So once we're down on our belly, we're going to stretch the legs out behind us. We can place the arms against the bolster or pillows, and we'll have the heart space kind of supported by our bolster. We might also grab a block so that we can rest our chin or our forehead against the block for a little bit more support. This part isn't necessary, but it might be something that helps you relax and release a little bit more into the posture. If this feels good, we can stay here. If we feel like we need a bit more support, we can create a ramp. So I'm going to move my bolster out of the way, create my L shape with my blocks, and rest my bolster against this. And then kind of adjust myself. So again, my upper body is going to be supported by the bolster, and then I can lay my head down. I might even grab a second blanket to fold. So I have a little bit of space between my face and the bolster if I want to rest directly down. Sorry, you're not going to be able to hear me in a moment because my mic's going to be covered. But this is what that would look like. Beautiful. If you would rather, you can also lie reclined against our ramp or with the bolster directly on the ground and release back this way. If we are on our chair, my knee's still a little tender today. We can either place the hands on the lap, or we can have our bolster on our lap and our hands on top of that. Or we can set this up on the chair in front of us. We can turn around so that the back is against us if we like. Place the arms there, pull the heart space forward, gaze up, maybe rest our hands on so that our chin rests on the back. Or we can have the chair facing us and come down into a fold, bringing the legs further apart, placing our hands on our legs or the chairs in front of us for support, and then shining the heart forward. So if we're in front of us, it's a bit more restorative. If you're at a table, you can do the same thing against the table. So wherever we are, excuse me, we're going to find our particular variation of Sphinx, and we'll be here for the next 3 to 4 minutes. If we notice the shoulders hunching up, we might take a moment, see if we can release the shoulders back again. When we're ready, we'll slowly return to the breath, noticing the inhale and exhale. If we have our block beneath our chin, we might gently remove that and then slowly press up, either from on the mat or on the bolster. We might come through tabletop, or we can roll off to the side. If we're in our chair, we'll go ahead and press up. Beautiful. For our second position, we'll be coming into a wide-legged forward fold. So for that, again, we have a few options. We can have our legs out as wide as is comfortable. We might have a bolster that we can stand upright. We might have blocks that we can stack on top of each other in the same manner. If we like, we can wrap our blanket around our shoulders or place it over our legs for whatever feels comfortable. And we can slowly begin to hinge forward, resting our forehead or our cheek against the top of our our bolster or blocks. If we like, we can lie the bolster in front of us, hinge forward if this is accessible to us, and rest directly against the bolster. And my personal favorite, taking our blocks and creating a table for our bolster, either hinging and resting the head directly against this, or resting the arms and our head on our arms. Any of these options or anything else that gets you to where you are, you can also hinge forward, resting against the seat of a chair or your couch or your coffee table. Anything works. If we're in our chair, again, we're going to spread our legs as wide as is comfortable, plant the feet down into the ground, and then hinge forward, resting against the chair in front of us, or resting our arms on our thighs as we hinge forward. So whatever feels comfortable. If none of this feels comfortable, please go ahead, type it in the chat. So we can make any little adjustments we need. We can move our supports further from us if we want more hinging forward, or bring them closer to us if we want more support so we can be a little bit more upright. And when we've found our position, we might take a few deep breaths, again, maybe even in through the nose, out through the mouth. Maybe releasing with a sigh, and really allowing ourselves to rest forward against the support. Excuse me. Allowing ourselves to melt into the props. And when in doubt, always give yourself more support. Always start with less of a fold. It's one of those counterintuitive things that can happen when our bodies feel supported and safe. Usually we can start to release and let go. And as we release and let go, we can make adjustments. We can move deeper into the posture if that's what feels comfortable for us. Deeper into the fold. And we'll be here for the next 4 minutes or so. We'll slowly come back to the breath, noticing the inhale and exhale. We can place our hands against the props or the mat or the chair and gently begin to press up, taking our time. Beautiful. We'll set up for our final posture before Shavasana. So this one we have a lot of different options for. It's a variation on fish pose, sometimes called, let me get the other, yeah, supine posture for shoulders, depending on what style of yoga. Um, and so this might look a little different for everybody, depending on the props and depending on what feels good in your body. So I'm going to start with the traditional restorative fish. So that would be lying our bolster or pillows along the mat. And we might roll a blanket, maybe place it beneath the knees if we'd like some more support there. If we practice fish on blocks in our regular practice, we can also choose that today. Although I do recommend maybe placing a blanket over the blocks so it's a little bit softer for you. But the other option is to place the bolster widthways across the mat instead of along the mat. We take one of our blocks and place that above for our to support our head, and then we'll take our blankets, or maybe one blanket depending on the size. I'm going to fold this over, make it a little bit higher. And this will be optional support for our arms. So, regardless of what prop setup we're using, we're going to face our bum towards our bolster or pillows. If we are using the more traditional lengthwise bolster, we'll bring our bum right up against the base of the bolster. If we're using this, where it's going across the mat, we're going to be about 5 to 6 inches maybe in front of our bolster. We want this to be supporting us under the shoulder blades. And by that, I mean the bottom of the bolster should be just below kind of the arc of the shoulder blades. And then we will rest our head on our block. And then we have the option to lift the arms up above onto our blankets behind us. If we're in the more traditional variation, we might let the arms rest down to our sides if we want more heart opening. But we'll take a few deep breaths here. We can make any adjustments we need, maybe moving our arm support closer or further. If we are in the chair, this is going to look a little different. We might take our bolster and place it behind us, up and down, or our pillows, so that we can rest against the back of the chair. We can even angle it by pulling the base of the bolster, scooting to the front of the chair, pulling the base of the bolster towards our bum. And that way we can recline back a bit, letting our arms either rest on the arms of the chair or down by our sides. So whichever variation we have found for ourselves. Again, we can have another blanket over the legs if we like. But we will find ourselves in our chosen position. Taking a few deep breaths again, maybe in through the nose, out through the mouth, releasing with that sigh, letting the shoulders be heavier with each exhale. And then finding our natural breath, or the breath we chose at the beginning of our practice. We'll be here for the next 5 to 6 minutes. And when we're ready, we'll slowly return to the breath, noticing our inhale and exhale. If our arms are overhead, we'll slowly bring them down and back. We can take any movement, maybe rolling from side to side, and then gently rolling off onto the right or left side. If we're seated, we can gently press up. And we'll find our final resting position today. So we may come into Shavasana, lying on our backs with a bolster or a pillow beneath the knees, maybe covering ourselves with our blanket. We might use our eye mask or eye pillow. If we're seated, we might roll one of our blankets, wrapping it around the back of the neck so that we can rest comfortably against the back of our chair, maybe bringing our feet up onto the chair in front of us. And once we found our position, we might invite our bodies into rest. We might let our eyes soften or close. And maybe take a slow breath in and a longer breath out. As we settle, we might gently bring our awareness to the area around our neck and shoulders. There's nothing we need to change. We can simply notice. Notice the heaviness or lightness, the warmth or coolness, any sensations at all, whether sharp or subtle. We can let our breath arrive here like a balm, not to fix, but to soften, not to push, but to offer presence. On our next inhale, we might imagine the breath gently lifting the base of the skull, as though our breath could cradle the back of the neck. And as we exhale, we can allow our shoulders to melt just a little closer to the earth. We might even imagine them dropping down like wet sandbags, released from the stories that we've been holding, the armor that we've been wearing, the bracing that sometimes feels necessary. And now maybe it doesn't need to be. We can breathe again. Feel the breath meet the throat, meet the collarbones, the tops of the arms. We can let it spill into every nook and corner of the upper back. And with each exhale, we might imagine warm water rinsing through, carrying away what's no longer needed. There's nothing to force, nothing to prove, just our bodies being held as they are, our breath arriving, this moment enough. We can take 3 more slow, gentle breaths together. letting them be a quiet affirmation of ease. And we'll rest here in this space of ease for the next 4 minutes or so. When we're ready, we might begin to bring awareness back into the space around us. We might wiggle our fingers, stretch our arms, take any movement that feels comfortable. And of course, if we want to stay here, we can. We might bring our attention to the breath, noticing our inhale and exhale before gently rolling off to the right or left side. There's no rush. We might press up to seated. emerging as slowly as we like, and carrying with us any softness that we found. From wherever we are, if it's helpful, we might bring the hands to heart center or place our hands anywhere against the body that feels good. And take 3 more breaths together in a way that feels comfortable for us. We might take a moment to thank ourselves for making space for rest, for allowing ourselves to let go of what we no longer need to carry. And I'd like to thank you so much for sharing your practice with me.